Yeah. So I see a society in decay. That's all I see. But I digress. I digress. Yeah. What do you think? Agree or disagree? Or you have anything to add to it? I just, at the end of the day, the mud dwellers are still gonna have hunger afterwards, and they're gonna find other people that they want to hate, and that's their whole lifestyle is to hate everything. And so the problem is really hate, and less so uh, pedophiles, even though pedophiles are easy to, demonize. That's very easy. Just like you could easily demonize murderers, rapists, or I don't know, mud dwellers in general, or just like scammers, thieves, liars. I mean, where do you put the stop? Where do you stop once you get started? Right? Because murders, that's you can't murder people. Should they be logged off the internet? You shouldn't lie. That's a sin, And what about people that are bullies? They shouldn't be on the internet too. And what about people that lied that one time, or that they had that bad comment there on YouTube there like 4 years ago? That's gonna, or sorry, or 6 years ago, or that thing you said last week, or all of these just gotta be saved forever for 900,000 million years, right? If you say one word that's outside of the norm, of course you're gonna go into a concentration camp that never ends, right? Surely it will, surely once they get one class of people, it won't come to you or your internet comments or something, right? And you won't be scared to walk on eggshells. You'll just be feeling free and be like, oh, well, I can do anything, you know? Surely society will not condemn me forever and ever and ever for some retarded shit. Right? Surely, when I'm 4 years old, I'm responsible for everything. So I should have known by the law by when I was four, right? So if I'm not perfect by at least when I'm 4 years, when I get before I get my first memory, you know, I should have known. Should have known, Tim Dooley. I mean, why are you not perfect from before you were born? Like, what the fuck? Like, from before you had your first memory? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck, Tim Dooley? How could you make a single mistake in your life that one time when you had a comment somewhere on the internet or whatever? That's unforgivable for a quadrillion billion space built, years of forever. Your life on Earth is basically it's over. There's no more life for you. You did say one bad word. You can't say bad words, right? So there you go. You're fucked forever. There you go. It's over. Your life is over forever. You did say the word fuck. I know it was a mistake, but I don't really. The internet doesn't really care. That's gonna stick with you for a quadr quadru quintillion years, about roughly. There's no. You can't take that back. You can't say sorry because we can only remember the first thing you said. Or you can't. There's no redemption art. There's only that comment you had, like, or several comments. It doesn't matter. They're gonna be fine. Everyone makes a mistake, which means everyone gets concluded is excluded from society eventually. It's just where do we put the stop? But the question is, how can we even stop when we first get started with this cancer? It's like we just pluck the next neighbor and pluck the next neighbor. It is a dog world. The dogs are in control, right? So that's how you know it's a dog world. It will not be changing until they listen to them really, until they find potatoes and say, we want potatoes and not dogs. And then it will change. When they say, we want seeds, we believe in Jesus Christ, we have found Christ. Because he believed that neighbors should be treated like neighbors and not like animals. That was the moment that humanity made a mistake. Was the moment they mistook a neighbor for an animal, for a cow, for something to farm, for a soul to trade. against their will. That is the exact moment that humanity started rotting away. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm God. For that exact specific, very specific reason right there. So that is the single message I have over and over again as God is do not dehumanize neighbors. Turn that around. When you see it, be be an anti-bully because it is creating destruction through generations. Mark my words, because I've seen it through generations, right? I've seen people in pain, or it creates endless cycles of habitual hatred. So do not let he who cast the first stone and so on. Remember Jesus Christ's words. And people read the Bible and then they're like forgetting about these things, or maybe they're not seeing it when it happens to their neighbor. Maybe they don't understand that there's a spiritual war going on, and it's not just my problem. It's American society. And I'm like, hello, wake up, hello. But no, all of America is like, they're like, no, no, we got this, Tim Dooley. We don't want to listen to you. We don't want to listen to you. You're an animal, right? And there you go. There, they killed Jesus Christ again, right? And so they repeat the 2,000-year-old folly. The Lion of Man, the Son of Man, died in my son, and the world, America will truly sink until they understand that they must resurrect my son, right? The more Americans ignore this warning, the more we can say that truly they're Babylon, right? They're creating walls of hatred that eventually are gonna create wars and hatred and murder. They're gonna murder their neighbors and call it justice. That is the road that they pave. So that's a road to hell. And then they're gonna make their children watch it. Gonna make their children watch as they murder pedophiles and hang them in trees. So, but that's what Americans want. And they don't want to call it justice. They don't want to say that's right, that's what we need to do, which is crazy if you ask me. Has nothing to do with justice. I mean, yeah, you know, kids should be protected. It's not like I'm not for predators. I am against predators. But that goes for all predators, right? I don't think that there's a difference between somebody. See, I'm a little bit wiser, right? I do believe that there's not a big difference between predators, whether they predate on old people, the young ones, or the ones in between the young ones and the old ones, or God for that matter, or dogs or animals. Abuse is abuse. Like, but otherwise people have really lost their brain, right? They can disagree with that, but then they'll be living in lies. So, but then you can always hierarchically say, well, it's a little bit worse against this or that. Yeah, sure, 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 sure. But it's you want to look at wrong or right, which isn't technically something I look at, but it's all wrong. You want to look at it like that. So, an abuse, whether it's spiritual, mental, or physical, exploitation is bad in all cases. And there we could also argue what's worse and what's I would argue physical is probably a little bit worse, but I don't know. I mean, spiritual is also worse, and mental is also bad, right? So it's like abuse and exploitation and slavery and trafficking is generally bad. Bullying is what it is if it stops after a while, right? But when people make a whole life of trafficking humans against their will, that's a demonic behavior, especially when they've been told. But that's why I see societies. I see destructive timelines, right? The road to destruction is wide, and that's a wide road because once you begin to justify in your head killing neighbors or murdering them or taking them out or blocking them off the internet or something like this, you can justify the next thing once you get success in one endeavor. It's also something I've seen before because I've sat in culture for so long. right? When they kill somebody, when they murder someone, they don't stop. When they murder someone, they get hungry and they want to murder more people. So you might say that the angry mob is a murderer, is a killer, is a serial killer. The hive with no mind is a serial killer, right? And they talk about how they want to get rid of PDFs. Well, I guess they want to kill those too. And so it's like it is a slow-moving cancer that demands change and justice, but they don't demand justice. They demand release for their hunger, but they mistake that for justice. They mistake their anger and their own misdirection for justice, and that's why I'm concerned for America because they're blind. And what's does the Bible say about when the blind leads the blind, they fall into a ditch. So America is a blind dog leading a blind dog into a ditch. And the blind dogs are so busy biting at my hands that no one in America is going to listen to Tim Dooley. And that's even more concerning. The fact that the blind dogs are are dogpiling on each other in order to bark the solution away so that they can all sit and stew in the problems so that they can blindly go over a ledge and fall into the swamp where they want to have a drain, but Tim Dooley is the drain that they discarded. Amazing, right? They reject the rejected drain in the swamp. Ah, well, we're protecting the children in here in the swamp inside the Epstein files. Okay, well, how's that going? Yeah.
The file. In a windowless